The twins smelled like pine sap and wet granite, and Lyra pressed her nose into the space between their sleeping heads, where their hair tangled together, breathing them in while the last embers in the stone hearth ticked and cooled. 6 years of this. 6 years of carrying water up the mountain in clay jugs that left rust-colored half-moons on her palms. 6 years since the Ashenmoor pack had dragged her to the northern boundary, cut the pack bond with a ritual knife across her left forearm, and told her to walk until the trees swallowed her whole. She had been 19, 5 months pregnant. The scar on her forearm had healed into a pale ridge that ached when it rained, which in these mountains meant it ached most days. The cabin had belonged to a dead trapper whose name she never learned. She found it with the door hanging open, a family of foxes nesting in the mattress, and a root cellar full of jarred preserves, so old the lids had rusted shut. She pried them open with a flat rock and ate pickled beets with her fingers, crying so hard the salt from her tears mixed with the vinegar. And that was the first meal she gave her unborn children. Now the twins were 5, nearly 6. Rowan the boy slept with his fists clenched, even in dreams, like he was holding on to something no one else could see. Sage the girl slept with one eye half open, a milky sliver of white that had terrified Lyra the first time she noticed it, until she realized the child was simply too watchful to fully surrender to sleep. They were not normal children. Lyra had known this since the day they were born, when Sage came out silent and Rowan came out growling, actually growling a sound no human infant should make. Their eyes were the problem, not brown like hers, not the muddy hazel common to Ashenmoor wolves. Their eyes were the color of winter light on steel, pale grey, almost silver, with a ring of blue, so dark it looked like a bruise around the iris. She had seen those eyes once before. Once, the morning was already pressing cold fingers through the gaps in the cabin walls, when Lyra untangled herself from the twins and stepped barefoot onto the stone floor. Her feet knew every cold spot, every uneven edge. She had mapped this cabin with her body, the way blind women map rooms by memory and consequence. The loose board by the door that would wake Rowan, the nail head near the hearth that had opened her heel last winter and left a scar like a crescent moon. She pulled on the elk hide boots she had stitched herself, the seams lumpy and imperfect, and pushed through the door into a morning so cold it tasted like metal on her tongue. The creek was 200 yards down the slope. She carried 2 clay jugs, one under each arm, and walked the path she had worn into the mountain. Over 6 years, a groove in the earth that was hers, the way nothing else in the world was hers. The pines were enormous here, their trunks wide enough to hide behind their lower branches, stripped bare by wind, so they looked like old men holding up their arms in surrender. Frost sugared the dead needles underfoot. A hawk circled above the tree line, riding the thermals with that patient, indifferent hunger that Lyra understood better than she wanted to. She filled the jugs. The water was so cold it made her knuckles ache. She watched her reflection break apart in the current, and thought not for the first time that she looked like someone who had been left outside too long. Her cheekbones were sharper than they used to be, not elegant, just insufficient. Her dark hair hung past her shoulders in a braid she redid every 3 days, because vanity required energy she spent elsewhere. There was a scar on her collarbone from the time she fell carrying firewood when Sage was a baby, a longer one on her right shin from a deadfall trap she stepped in during her second winter, before she learned to read the mountain's small cruelties. She was 25 years old. She felt like she had been alive for centuries. The walk back was uphill, and her arms burned by the time she reached the cabin. Rowan was awake, standing in the doorway, with his dark hair sticking up. and his strange, pale eyes scanning the tree line the way he always did in the mornings, like he was checking for something. Sage was behind him, one hand on his shoulder, her half-opened sleeping eye now fully alert and tracking a squirrel on the roof. "Mom," Rowan said. "Something smells different today." Lyra set the jugs down on the flat rock by the door. "Different, how?" He tilted his head. He did this when he was trying to separate one scent from another, a skill no 5-year-old should have, a skill that belonged to shifted wolves, not children who had never transformed. "Like smoke," he said. "But not our smoke, different smoke, and something under it. Like the way rocks smell when lightning hits them." Lyra went very still. "Take your sister inside," she said. Her voice was calm. She had learned to make her voice calm, the way she had learned to set snares and chew willow bark for fever out of necessity with no one to teach her. "Close the shutters." "But Mom!" "Now, Rowan." He took Sage's hand and pulled her inside. Sage went without protest, but she looked back at Lyra with those uncanny eyes, and in the flat grey light of the mountain morning, they looked exactly like the eyes of a man Lyra had spent 6 years trying to forget. The father of her children, the man who didn't know they existed, the Alpha King of the Iron Vale territory, whose name was spoken in whispers across 7 packs, and whose wolf was said to be the size of a draft horse and twice as mean. Kale Drakemere. Lyra had never been his mate. That was the thing people would have gotten wrong if anyone had cared enough to wonder about the thin Omega woman living alone on a mountain with 2 strange children. She had not been rejected by a lover. She had been a servant in a house where a powerful man passed through for one night during a war summit, and what happened between them was not a love story. It was a single encounter in a dark hallway where his wolf had smelled something on her that made his pupils blow wide, and she had been too young and too Omega submissive to do anything but stand there while his hand closed around her arm and his breath came hot against her neck, and he said in a voice like gravel shifting, What are you?" That was all. One night. He was gone before sunrise, and she never told anyone, because who would have believed her, the lowest ranking Omega in Ashenmoor, claiming the Alpha King had touched her in a hallway? They would have laughed, or worse, they would have punished her for the lie. And then she was pregnant, and the pack elders smelled the change in her, and they did not ask who the father was, because it did not matter. An unmated Omega with a swelling belly was a problem to be removed. They cut her bond and sent her walking. The smoke Rowan smelled was real. Lyra climbed the ridge behind the cabin, staying low, keeping her body behind the thick trunk of a lightning-scarred pine. From the ridge she could see the valley below, and what she saw made her stomach drop like a stone into cold water. Soldiers, at least 40 of them moving in formation. Through the valley, their dark cloaks marked with the iron-grey sigil she recognized even at this distance. The snarling wolf with a crown of thorns, Iron Vale. They were not looking for her. She knew this the way she knew the weather by the ache in her scars instinctively, before reason caught up. 40 soldiers did not hunt for one banished Omega. They were tracking something through the mountains, following a trail that happened to pass within a mile of her cabin. But a mile was nothing to a wolf's nose. And if even one of them scented her children... She scrambled back down the ridge, her boots sliding on loose shale. Inside the cabin, she grabbed the leather pack she kept ready at all times, the one she had prepared for the day she always knew would come. Dried venison, a fire-starting kit, the twins' heavier furs, a knife with a bone handle that she had pulled from the long walk?" he asked. She had taught them this. She was not proud of it, teaching 5-year-olds that there was a kind of walk you took when you might not come back. But she had done it because the mountain had taught her that survival was an uglier teacher than she was. "The long walk," she confirmed. Sage reached under the straw mattress and pulled out her own small bundle, a square of deer skin wrapped around a collection of smooth river stones she insisted on keeping. She had been ready. She was always ready. That half-open, sleeping eye. They moved north. Lyra knew these mountains the way a reader knows a book by having gone over the same passages again and again until the knowledge lived in her body. She took the deer trails that wound along the steepest ridgelines where scent dispersed faster in the wind. She carried Sage on her back when the child's shorter legs couldn't keep pace. Rowan walked beside her, his small jaw set, his strange eyes fixed ahead. They walked for 3 hours. The sun climbed, and the frost melted, and the world turned from grey to green and gold. Lyra's shoulders ached under Sage's weight. Her boots were wearing through at the balls of her feet, and she could feel the cold stone through the leather. But they were making distance, and the soldiers' scent trail, which even she could detect now, campfire ash and oiled metal, was fading behind them. Then Rowan stopped. He stopped so suddenly that Lyra nearly walked into him. He was staring at a point between the trees ahead, his nostrils flaring, his body rigid in a way that no child's body should be rigid like a wire pulled taut. "Rowan, someone's there," he whispered. A figure stepped out from behind a massive fallen oak. Then another, then 3 more. They were wolves. Not shifted, but close. Lyra could tell by the way they moved, too fluid, too coordinated, their eyes catching light at angles that human eyes didn't. Scouts. They wore the same dark cloaks as the soldiers in the valley, but these were lighter, faster. Advance scouts for the main force. The one in front was a woman with cropped red hair and a scar that ran from her left ear to the corner of her mouth, pulling it into a permanent half-smile that was not a smile at all. She looked at Lyra with mild curiosity, the way you look at a rabbit that has wandered into a wolf's path. "Well," the woman said, "what are you doing up here, little mother?" Lyra pulled both children behind her. Sage went silently. Rowan growled. The sound that came from his throat was wrong for a child. Too deep, too resonant, vibrating at a frequency that made the scout woman's eyebrows lift. "Passing through," Lyra said. "We don't want trouble." "Nobody wants trouble," the woman said. "Trouble shows up anyway. That's what makes it trouble." She took a step closer, and her nostrils flared. "You're Omega. No pack bond. Interesting." Another step. Her eyes moved past Lyra to the twins. "And these two are..." She stopped. The half-smile on her scarred face froze into something else entirely. "Ren," she said to the man behind her without taking her eyes off the twins. "Come look at these children." The man called Ren was tall and broad and moved with the careful economy of a career soldier. He came to stand beside the red-haired woman and looked at Rowan and Sage. He looked at their faces for a long time. The color left his skin by degrees like water being poured out of a glass. "Those eyes," he said. "Yes, that's not possible." And yet, they both looked at Lyra. The mild curiosity was gone. What replaced it was something far more dangerous. The alert, calculating expression of people who have just realized they are holding a loaded weapon and are not sure which way it's pointed. "You need to come with us," the red-haired woman said. "No," Lyra said. "That wasn't a request, little mother. My children are hungry and tired. We've been walking since dawn. Whatever business you have in these mountains is not our business. We just want to go home." The red-haired woman exchanged a glance with Wren. Something passed between them, a decision made in the silent language of people who have served together for years. "Your home," the woman said carefully, "is going to have to wait. We're taking you to our king." The word hit Lyra like a fist under the ribs. She had spent 6 years building a life in which that word meant nothing, in which kings and packs and hierarchies were distant stories the wind carried away. She had carved out a silence so complete that some mornings she forgot she had ever been anything but a woman on a mountain with 2 children and a leaking roof. "I have no business with your king," Lyra said. The red-haired woman looked at the twins again, at their eyes. "I think you do," she said softly. "I think you have very significant business with our king, whether you know it or not." They were given no choice. The scouts closed around them like a hand, closing around a small animal, gentle enough not to crush firm enough that escape was theoretical. They walked for the rest of the day north and west, deeper into territory Lyra had never entered. The trees grew denser, the air grew colder. By late afternoon they reached a military camp in a valley so narrow it felt like standing at the bottom of a blade. Tents of dark canvas, horses picketed along a stream, the smell of wood smoke and roasting meat, and the sharp metallic undertone of weapons being sharpened. Soldiers moved through the camp with the quiet efficiency of men who knew that war was not a distant concept, but a schedule they were keeping. The red-haired woman whose name was Maren brought Lyra and the twins to a tent at the camp's center. It was larger than the others, but not ostentatious. The canvas was plain. The only marker of its importance was the pair of guards at the entrance, whose postures suggested they were not decorative. "Wait here," Maren said. Then she looked at the twins, and for a moment that permanent half-smile softened into something that might have been on a different face concern. "The children, are they? Can they shift?" "They're 5, Lyra said. "That's not what I asked." "No, they can't shift. They're children." Maren looked at Rowan, who was growling again, a low, constant vibration in his chest, like a cat's purr, turned predatory. "Right," she said. "Children." She went into the tent. Lyra knelt and pulled the twins close. "Listen to me. Whatever happens in there, you stay behind me. You don't speak unless I say. You don't growl." This to Rowan. "You don't stare." This to Sage, who had a habit of fixing her eyes on people with an unblinking intensity that made adults shift their weight. "You are invisible. You are quiet. Do you understand? Is it the person who smells everywhere?" Rowan asked. Lyra frowned. "What?" "The smell. It's been getting stronger since we started walking. It's on the soldiers. It's on the tents. It's on the ground. Like when you crush pine needles, but warmer. And something else. Like iron, but not angry iron. He struggled for words. "It's a safe smell, Mum. That's the weird part. It smells safe." Lyra's heart was beating so hard she could hear it in her ears, because she could smell it too. Faintly the way an old wound remembers the shape of the blade. She had smelled it once before, 6 years ago, in a dark hallway in the Ashen Moor pack house, and it had been the last thing she smelled before everything changed. Pine resin, iron, and underneath both, something warm and alive like bread baking in a stone oven, and she had never been able to name it, because the word for it did not exist in any language she knew only in the wolf's language, the one her wolf had spoken to her, once in a hallway, when a massive hand closed around her arm, and a voice said, "You. What are you, mate?" The word was mate. She had denied it for 6 years. Her wolf was so weak, so suppressed by years of Omega submission in Ashenmoor that the bond had registered as nothing more than a whisper, a tug in her chest that she had attributed to fear. She had been 19. She had not understood. Now she was 25, and the whisper was a shout. The tent flap opened. Maren stood there with a carefully neutral expression. "The king will see you." The interior of the tent was lit by oil lamps that cast warm amber light across a space dominated by a table covered in maps. There were 3 men standing around the table. 2 of them were large in the way that alpha warriors were large, wide-shouldered, heavy-jawed, built for violence. The third was something else. He stood at the far end of the table with one hand resting on the map's edge, and the first thing Lyra noticed was not his size, though he was the tallest man in the tent by half a head, or his face, though she would get to that in a moment. The first thing she noticed was the stillness of him. He stood the way mountains stand. Not rigid, not tense, but so fundamentally unmovable that the concept of movement seemed like something that applied to other people. The lamplight caught the planes of his face and turned them into geography. The ridge of his brow, the valley of his jaw, the deep-set shadows where his eyes should be. Then he looked up, and there they were, grey as winter steel, blue-black rings around the iris like bruises. Rowan's eyes, Sage's eyes, his eyes. 6 years collapsed into nothing. Lyra felt the bond hit her like a wall of heat from an opened furnace, so sudden and so total that her knees nearly buckled. Her wolf silent for so long, she had almost forgotten what it sounded like. Woke up and howled inside her chest with a sound like breaking glass. Kyle Drakemere stared at her. His hand on the map tightened until the paper crumpled under his fingers. His nostrils flared, his pupils dilated until the grey was almost swallowed by black, and a muscle in his jaw worked once, twice, 3 times like he was chewing on something he could not swallow. "Everyone out," he said. His voice, she had forgotten his voice, but her body had not. It was deep, not the performative deepness of men trying to sound authoritative, but the genuine geological depth of a sound that originated somewhere in the bedrock of his chest. The 2 warriors at the table left immediately. Maren hesitated. "The woman and the children, my king. I thought you should see." I said out. Maren left. The tent flap closed. The oil lamps flickered in the displaced air, and then it was just Lyra and her children, and the Alpha King of Iron Vale, and the silence was so thick Lyra could hear the twins breathing. Kyle came around the table. Each step was deliberate, controlled, like a man walking towards something explosive and trying not to set it off. He stopped 6 feet from Lyra. His eyes moved over her face, and she watched him catalogue her, the sharpness of her cheekbones, the scar on her collarbone, the way her clothes hung loose on a frame that had been underfed for too many years. She watched something move behind his eyes, something that was not calculating or political, but raw and animal and barely leashed. Then his gaze dropped to the twins. Rowan had stopped growling. He was staring up at Kale with an expression Lyra had never seen on his face. Not fear, not aggression, but recognition. The look of someone seeing a thing they have always known existed, but never encountered. Sage had her hand in Lyra's and was squeezing with a strength that no 5-year-old should possess. Kyle looked at the children's eyes. He looked for a long time. "How old?" he said. It was not a question. It was a demand, compressed into 2 words. 5 years and 7 months, Lyra said. She watched him do the math, watched the realization move across his face like weather crossing a plain. His jaw tightened. His hands, which were enormous, scarred across the knuckles from fights she could not imagine curled into fists at his sides. go down. "Like morning," he said. "You smelled like morning." Not the word. The actual thing. The way it smells before anyone else is awake. Lyra's eyes burned. She would not cry. She hadn't cried since the night the twins were born, alone in a dead trapper's cabin, biting down on a strip of leather, while her body split itself in two to bring them into the world. "Why did you leave?" His voice cracked on the word leave, and the crack was more terrifying than his stillness, because it meant there was pressure behind the surface. "I came back. The next morning. I came back to that hallway, and you were gone. I searched the entire pack house. They told me there was no one. No Omega. No woman matching your description. They lied to my face, and I knew they were lying, but I had no proof. And I had a war to fight, and He stopped again. His breathing was uneven. The Alpha King of Iron Vale, feared across 7 territories, whose wolf was legend, was breathing like a man who had been running. They banished me, Lyra said, when I started showing. They cut my pack bond and sent me into the mountains. I was 5 months pregnant. The sound he made was not a word. It came from his chest, from the place where the wolf lived, and it was so low and so vast that Lyra felt it in her teeth. The oil lamps trembled. A cup on the table rattled against the wood. "Who?" he said. "Who cut your bond? Give me a name." "It doesn't matter. Give me a name." Elder Harkin. Beta Corwin held me down. Harkin used the knife. He turned away from her. He turned away and pressed both fists against the table, and stood there with his head down and his shoulders heaving, and Lyra watched the muscles in his back move under his shirt like tectonic plates. And she understood that she was watching a man choose very deliberately not to destroy everything in reach. Rowan walked forward. Lyra grabbed for him, but he slipped past her hand with that unnatural quickness the twins both had. He walked right up to Kyle Drakemere, this mountain of a man vibrating with barely contained rage, and stood at his side and looked up. "You smell like us," Rowan said. Kyle looked down. The rage drained from his face so fast, it left him looking hollowed out like a riverbed after a flood. He dropped to one knee, slowly the way you kneel when you are afraid of scaring something precious, and he was eye level with his son. The identical eyes met. Grey steel and blue-black rings. Kyle raised one hand. He moved it toward Rowan's face with the careful deliberation of a man defusing a bomb, and he stopped with his fingers an inch from the boy's cheek, and he looked at Lyra. "May I?" he said. 2 words. And they broke something in Lyra that she had been holding together with willpower and silence for 6 years. Because no one in her entire life had asked her permission for anything. She nodded. Kyle touched his son's face. His thumb brushed Rowan's cheekbone. Rowan leaned into the touch like a cat, pressing into a hand, instinctive, unhesitating. Sage let go of Lyra's hand. She walked forward, measured and watchful, and she stood beside her brother and looked at the Alpha King with that unblinking stare. And she said the first word she had spoken all day. "Father." Kyle flinched. Actually flinched, this man who had fought wars, who had held territories against rival alphas, who was rumored to have killed a rogue wolf with his bare hands in human form. He flinched at a 5-year-old girl's voice, and then he pulled both children against his chest and held them. And Lyra saw his eyes close, and his jaw clench, and a single muscle in his temple jump. And she understood that he was not going to cry either, because men like him had their own version of biting down on leather. When he stood, he still had one hand on each child's shoulder, and he looked at Lyra with an expression she could not read. There were too many things in it. Rage and grief and something desperate and wanting that he was clearly not accustomed to feeling. "You are not not going back to that mountain," he said. "My cabin. You are not going back." His voice gentled by a fraction of a degree. "I have spent 6 years looking for a scent I caught in a hallway. My wolf has been... I have been..." He shook his head. "You don't know what it's like. Knowing your mate exists and not being able to find her. It is like having a wound that will not close." "I know exactly what it's like," Lyra said quietly. "I've been living it, alone, on a mountain, with your children." The words landed. She watched them hit him one by one like arrows finding gaps in armor. His expression shifted from raw need to something more complex, something that had guilt in it and shame and a fierce protectiveness that was directed not at her, but at himself, as if he was angry at his own failure to find her sooner. "You will have everything," he said. "Whatever you need. Whatever they need. You will never be cold or hungry. Again, I swear this on my wolf, on my blood honor." "I don't need your oaths," Lyra said. "I need a bath. The children need food that isn't dried venison. And I need to sleep in a space where I don't have to keep one eye open for mountain cats." Something shifted in his face. Not a smile. Kyle Drakemare did not seem like a man who smiled easily. But the hard line of his mouth eased, and the tension around his eyes softened, and he made a sound that might have been in a man less guarded, a laugh. "Maren," he called. The tent flap opened instantly. Maren had obviously been standing right outside. "My king. This woman and these children are to be given quarters, hot water, food, clothing. Whatever she asks for, she receives. If anyone questions her presence, they answer to me." Maren looked at Lyra, at the twins, at Kyle's hand on Rowan's shoulder. "Understood, my king." And Maren, "Yes. Send a messenger to Ashenmoor. I want Elder Harkin and Beta Corwin brought to me, alive." Maren's scarred half-smile deepened into something genuine and cold. With pleasure, they gave her a tent with a bedroll thick enough that she lay on it and almost wept from the softness. They brought a copper tub and heated water in kettles over a fire, and Lyra bathed for the first time in hot water in so long that the sensation was almost painful, her skin prickling and flushing as the heat found muscles she hadn't known were knotted. The twins splashed beside her in a second smaller tub, and Sage made shapes in the steam with her fingers, while Rowan methodically scrubbed himself with a concentration that was like everything about him slightly too adult. They brought food, stew with actual meat, thick with root vegetables, and herbs Lyra could not name. Bread that was soft in the middle, cheese, dried fruit. The twins ate with the desperate efficiency of children who had learned that food was not guaranteed, and Lyra ate slowly, tasting each bite, letting the warmth spread through her chest. Clean clothes appeared, not fine, but warm and whole, without the patches and resewn seams that characterized everything she owned. A wool dress in dark green that fit her properly, and she stood in it and felt the fabric against her skin and realized she had forgotten what it felt like to wear something that was not slowly disintegrating. When the twins fell asleep, Lyra stepped outside. The camp was quieter now, the fires burning low, sentries moving in pairs along the perimeter. The mountains rose dark against a sky crowded with stars. Kyle was standing 30 feet from her tent. He was not pretending to be doing anything else. He was simply standing there facing her tent. His arms crossed, his expression unreadable in the firelight. "You're guarding us," Lyra said. "I am standing outside. You've been standing outside for 2 hours. I stand where I choose." She walked toward him. The ground was cold under the soft boots they had given her. She stopped at arm's length, and they regarded each other in the mountain dark. You asked me a question, Lyra said, 6 years ago, in that hallway. You said, "What are you?" I never answered. You didn't have to. I knew what you were. My wolf knew. Every part of me knew. And then you were gone, and I spent 6 years wondering if I had imagined you. You didn't imagine me. No. His eyes traced her face. You are thinner than I remember, and there are scars that were not there before. Mountains leave marks. I would like to hear about every one of them. Not now. When you are ready. She studied him. The firelight carved deep shadows under his cheekbones and turned his eyes into something metallic and alive. He was not handsome the way the young alphas in Ashenmoor had been, handsome, clean-jawed and smooth-skinned. He was handsome the way a cliff face is handsome through scale and severity and the suggestion of enormous force held in check. You don't know me, Lyra said. You knew me for one night. I knew you for 4 hours. My wolf has not stopped knowing you since. That's the bond. That's chemistry. That's not knowing. Then let me know you. I've been living alone for 6 years. I talk to my children and to a hawk that visits the cabin. I set traps and carry water, and I tell bedtime stories from memory because I have no books. I am not interesting. You survived alone on a mountain pregnant with twins, no pack bond, no wolf strong enough to shift, and you raised 2 children who have their father's eyes and their mother's steel. You are the most interesting person I have ever met. Lyra opened her mouth and closed it. She looked at the stars. She breathed the cold air. She let the silence hold for 10 full seconds because she had learned on the mountain that silence was not empty. Silence was the space where truth settled before you were ready to pick it up. I will not be owned, she said. I will not be a thing you found and claimed. I left one cage. I will not walk into another. You think I'm a cage. I think kings are cages by nature. Gold bars instead of iron, but bars nonetheless. He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was lower, rougher, stripped of the command tone she had heard him use with everyone else. My mother was a healer from a nomad pack. My father was the Iron Veil Alpha before me. He kept her like a trophy, fed her, clothed her, gave her everything except the door. She died trying to leave, not running from him, just trying to walk outside during a thunderstorm because she wanted to smell the rain. The guards stopped her. She fought them. She was 4 months pregnant with my younger brother. She lost the baby. She never recovered. He looked at Lyra with those grey eyes that her children had inherited. I am not my father, and I am telling you now in plain language, no oaths, no wolf speak. The door is open. If you stay because you choose to. If you leave, I will watch you walk away, and it will destroy me, and I will let it. The fire cracked. A log shifted and sent a column of sparks spiraling into the black sky. Lyra watched them rise and disappear. I'll stay tonight, she said. Tomorrow we'll see. Tomorrow we'll see, he repeated, and the words sounded different in his mouth, heavier, like stones placed carefully on a balance. She went back to the tent. She lay between her sleeping children and listened to Rowan's breathing and Sage's small sighs and the distant, constant presence of the man standing outside in the cold, and she fell asleep faster than she had in 6 years. The next 3 days moved in a rhythm Lyra had not expected. She had imagined that entering the world of the Iron Veil would be like being swallowed a slow suffocation of autonomy, her mountain silence replaced by the noise and pressure of pack politics. Instead, Kyle gave her space with a restraint that surprised her. He visited the twins in the mornings, sitting cross-legged on the ground outside their tent while they ate breakfast, asking Rowan about the mountain, about what birds he could identify by their calls, what tracks he could read in the mud. He listened to the answers with the total focused attention of a man who was learning a language he had not known he needed to speak. With Sage, he was different. Sage did not talk much, never had. She communicated in looks and gestures, and the occasional single word dropped into a conversation like a stone into a pond. Kyle seemed to understand this intuitively. He sat beside her while she arranged her river stones in patterns on the ground, and he did not ask what the patterns meant. He just watched. Once she picked up a stone and placed it in his palm without explanation, and his hand closed around it with a tenderness that made Lyra look away because it was too private, too raw, the kind of moment you should not witness even when it is happening right in front of you. On the third day, Maren returned with news. She found Lyra watching the twins play fight in a clearing at the camp's edge, Rowan pouncing and Sage dodging with that half-step quickness, both of them moving with a coordination that drew stares from the Iron Veil soldiers. Ashen Moor has responded to the king's summons, Maren said. She sat on a log beside Lyra with the easy familiarity of a woman who did not observe conventional social hierarchies. They are not sending Harkin and Corwin. I didn't think they would. They are sending an envoy instead, a diplomat, to negotiate. Maren's scarred mouth twisted. Negotiate what I'm not sure. The king doesn't negotiate, he informs. Who is the envoy? Someone called Yelena. She said you'd know her. Lyra's hands went cold. Yelena, Beta Corwin's wife. The woman who had stood in the doorway of the Ashen Moor pack house and watched while her husband held a 19-year-old Omega down for the bond cutting. The woman who had said not to. Lyra, never to Lyra, but to the elder beside her. Make sure the cut is deep enough. We don't want her coming back. I know her, Lyra said. Maren looked at her for a long moment. The king doesn't know the details. He knows they banished you. He knows names. He doesn't know the specifics of how it was done. And you want me to tell him? I want you to decide whether he hears it from you or from the Ashen Moor envoy, who will absolutely spin it into a story where they were reasonable and you were a risk. Lyra watched Sage dodge Rowan's lunge and tap him lightly on the shoulder as he stumbled past. She watched Rowan grin and come back harder. They were her whole world. They had been her whole world for 6 years, and the world had been very small and very manageable. I'll tell him, she said. She found him in the command tent, alone for once, studying maps with a concentration that suggested the maps were personal enemies. He looked up when she entered, and the hard focus on his face dissolved immediately into something more open, more vulnerable, and she saw him try to hide it, and fail. I need to tell you about Ashen Moor, Lyra said. Sit. I'll stand. He nodded. He put down the map. He gave her his full attention, and Lyra understood in that moment the true weight of an Alpha King's full attention. It was not comfortable. It was like standing in direct sunlight with no shade, every detail of you illuminated, every flaw visible. She told him. Not the version she had rehearsed in her head, the efficient, stripped-down account of events. She told him the real version, the one she had never told anyone, because there had been no one to tell. She told him about growing up in Ashen Moor as the lowest Omega, the daughter of a dead rogue wolf and a human mother who died in childbirth. She told him about scrubbing the pack house floors at 14, while the other girls trained their wolves and laughed at her on their way to the sparring yard. She told him about the pack healer who gave her extra food, sometimes an old woman named Ciri, who smelled like calendula and wood smoke, the only person in the pack who touched her with any kindness at all. and how Ciri had died the winter before the war summit and left Lyra with no one. She told him about the hallway, about his hand on her arm, and his voice in the dark, and the 4 hours that followed, and she was careful to say, without drama or accusation, that she hadn't resisted because she hadn't known how. She had been 19 and Omega submissive, and no one had ever touched her before, and she had not understood that the heat in her chest was a mate bond. She had thought it was fear. She watched something terrible cross his face when she said this. Not anger. Something worse. The recognition that he had been in his own way, another person, taking from her without asking. "I should have known," he said. "I should have seen what you were. How young. How—" "I'm not telling you this for guilt," Lyra said. "I'm telling you because you need to know who I was when you found me, so you know who I've become." She continued. The pregnancy, the elder's cold pronouncement, the bond cutting in the main hall, not private, not dignified but public, so the pack could watch and remember what happened to Omegas who forgot their place. Corwin's hands on her arms, thick-fingered and impersonal, holding her still, while Harkin drew the ritual blade across the inside of her left forearm, and the pack bond severed with a pain that was not physical, but went deeper than physical, a tearing in the core of her that felt like being unmade. And Yelena, standing in the doorway, wearing a dress the color of ripe plums, watching with an expression that was not cruel exactly. That was the complicated part. Yelena's face had not shown cruelty. It had shown relief. The relief of a woman watching a problem be solved efficiently. "Make sure the cut is deep enough," Yelena had said. "We don't want her coming back." Kyle stood very still through all of it. His face did not change, but his scent did. The pine and iron and warm bread smell that Lyra had been breathing since she entered the tent shifted, darkened, took on an edge like ozone before a lightning strike. The air in the tent grew heavy. The oil lamps flickered. "She's coming here," Kyle said when Lyra finished. "This Yelena. Maren told me. She's coming to my camp to negotiate for the people who cut my mate's bond and drove her pregnant into the wilderness." The word mate hung in the air between them. He had not used it before. Not directly. Not like this. "I will handle it," he said. "You don't have to see her. I want to see her." His eyes snapped to hers. "Why?" "Because the last time she saw me, I was on my knees on a stone floor, bleeding from the arm, begging. I want her to see me standing up." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded, once a short, decisive movement. "You'll stand beside me," he said. "Not behind me. Beside me." The morning Yelena arrived was overcast. The sky the color of old pewter. The mountains shrouded in mist that clung to the tree line like gauze on a wound. Lyra stood at the entrance to the command tent, in the green wool dress, her hair braided her back straight. The twins were with Maren in a tent behind her. Kyle stood to her left, close enough that the heat of his body reached her through the cold air. He wore his formal armor, dark leather over mail, the iron-grey wolf sigil on his chest, and he looked like what he was, a king who had come from war and was perfectly willing to return to one. Yelena rode into camp on a grey horse. She had aged since Lyra had last seen her. The dark hair had threads of silver, and the lines around her mouth had deepened. She wore traveling clothes of good quality, and carried herself with the careful dignity of a woman accustomed to being the most important person in a room. She dismounted. She approached. She looked at Cale and began a formal greeting, and then her eyes moved to the woman standing beside him, and the words died in her mouth. The color did not drain from Yelena's face, the way it had from Wren's. Instead, it rose, a flush that started at her throat and climbed, mottling the skin of her cheeks, spreading to her ears. Not embarrassment, recognition. The sudden visceral understanding that the world had rearranged itself while she wasn't looking, and she was now standing on the wrong side of the arrangement. "Lyra," she said. "Yelena, you're alive. I am. So are my children." Yelena's eyes moved to Kyle, moved back to Lyra. She was calculating. Lyra could see it happening, the rapid assessment, the search for an angle that would work in this new configuration. The pack acted within its rights, Yelena said. She directed this at Kyle, her voice steady, her chin lifted. An unmated Omega, carrying an unidentified sire's pups. Pack law is clear on pack law, Kyle said, and the two words fell like stones into a frozen lake. You are going to stand in front of me and cite pack law. Alpha King with respect. The Omega you banished is my fated mate. The children she carried are mine, my blood, my eyes. You drove my mate into the mountains pregnant, and alone cut her pack bond with a blade, and told her never to come back. And you want to discuss pack law. Yelena's composure cracked, not dramatically. A small fissure, a tightening around the eyes, a slight tremor in the hands she held clasped in front of her. We didn't know, she said. How could we have known? She never said. Who would she have told? Lyra said. Who in that pack would have believed me, the lowest Omega claiming the Alpha King as her mate? You would have had me beaten for the insult. That's not... Yelena stopped. She looked at the ground, and then she did something that Lyra had not expected, something that did not fit the memory Lyra had carried for 6 years of a woman in a plum dress giving orders with cold efficiency. Yelena's shoulders dropped. The composure, the diplomatic posture, the careful chin lift, all of it fell away at once, and what was left was a woman who looked tired, deeply, genuinely tired, not in the body but in the core of herself. You're right, she said. No one would have believed you, and even if they had, Harkin would have found another reason. He wanted you gone. He wanted every unmated Omega gone. He was terrified. She looked up. Not of you specifically. Of the prophecy. The seer told him that a packless Omega's children would unseat his line. He heard that, and he started cutting Omegas loose, one after another. You were the 7th. The word settled over the clearing like ash. The 7th, Lyra repeated. He banished 11 total, before and after you. Any Omega who might conceive. He was paranoid, and my husband helped because my husband was a coward, and I stood in the doorway because I was a coward too, and I have not slept through a full night since, because your face is the first thing I see when I close my eyes. Silence. The mist crept lower. That doesn't change what was done, Kyle said. His voice had not softened. No, it doesn't. Where are the other 10? Yelena blinked. What? The other 10 Omegas Harkin banished. Where are they? I don't. Some returned to human towns. Some went north. 2 died. I don't know all of them. You will find out. You will bring me a list. Every name, every location, every child they bore alone, because your pack decided prophecy was more important than people. You will do this, and you will deliver it personally, because I want your face to be the face they see when help finally arrives. Do you understand? Yelena stared at him. You want me to find them. I want you to fix what you helped break. And when you have done that, and only when you have done that, you will return here, and we will discuss what becomes of Ashenmoor. Until then, your pack exists at my pleasure, and my pleasure is thin. He turned his back on her. The dismissal was total. Yelena stood alone in the clearing, stripped of leverage, stripped of dignity, assigned a penance she had not anticipated by a king who had chosen to turn her guilt into a tool rather than simply crush her under it. Lyra watched Yelena's face. She watched the woman absorb the sentence. And she saw just for a moment something flicker in Yelena's eyes that looked less like defeat and more like the first breath of a person who has been drowning in their own complicity and has just been given something to do with their hands. Yelena left within the hour. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She left the twins in Marin's care and walked to the stream at the camp's edge, where the water ran black and silver under the starlight. She sat on a flat rock and listened to the water and felt for the first time in 6 years the complete absence of fear. It terrified her. She had built her life on fear. Fear was the engine that drove her up the mountain every morning for water. Fear kept her traps set. Her firewood stocked her children's emergency packs ready. Fear was the wall she had built around herself, and now someone was taking it down brick by brick, and behind the wall there was nothing. Just empty space, just the possibility of a life she had never allowed herself to imagine. Kyle found her there. He sat on the rock beside her, leaving a foot of space between them, and they listened to the water together. "The campaign is ending," he said. "We've secured the northern passes. The pack that was raiding through the mountains has been dealt with. That's why my soldiers were in your valley. We were on the way home. Home. Iron Vale, the main territory. 3 days' ride from here. What happens when we get there? That depends on you. Everyone keeps saying that. You, Marin, even your soldiers look at me like I'm supposed to make a decision. I've spent 6 years making every decision alone, and I'm tired, Kyle. I'm tired of deciding whether to eat the last of the dried meat or save it for tomorrow. I'm tired of deciding whether the sound outside the cabin is wind or a mountain cat. I want to make a decision that isn't about survival." He was quiet for a long time. The stream moved and glittered. "When I was young," he said, "my wolf was uncontrollable. Not strong, uncontrollable. There's a difference. Strong wolves obey their keeper. Mine didn't. He raged. He tore. I shifted for the first time at 12 and destroyed half a barn and nearly killed my uncle. They chained me for 3 days until I shifted back. My father's solution was more control, more discipline, tighter chains. It worked in the sense that I learned to contain the wolf. It didn't work in the sense that containment isn't the same as peace." He turned his hand over in the starlight. A scar ran across his palm, thick and white-old. "I've been containing my wolf for 20 years. The night I found you in that hallway, he went still. For the first time. Not controlled, not leashed. Still, like the water in a deep lake. I didn't understand it then. I understand it now. I'm not a cure for your wolf. No. But you are the reason he stops fighting." Lyra looked at him. Really looked not the careful sidelong assessment she had been doing for days, but a direct, open look. He let her look. He did not perform. He did not puff up or lock his jaw or do any of the things alphas did when they wanted to impress. He just sat there scarred and enormous and imperfect, and let her see him. She reached across the foot of space between them and took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, immediately reflexive, and the contact sent a pulse of warmth through her arm and into her chest that was not the mate bond, or not only the mate bond. It was the simple, devastating comfort of another person's hand. "Tomorrow," she said. "Take us home tomorrow." 3 days on horseback. Kyle put Lyra on his own horse a massive black stallion that should have terrified her but didn't, because the animal, like everything else in Kale's orbit, seemed to recalibrate in her presence. The twins rode with Maren, who turned out to be surprisingly patient with children, perhaps because she treated them the same way. She treated soldiers with blunt directness and a complete absence of condescension. Rowan asked Maren about the scar on her face. Most children would have been shushed. Maren told him the truth. A wolf bit me when I was 16. I killed it. The scar was the price. Rowan considered this seriously and then said, "Fair price." Maren laughed so hard she nearly dropped him from the saddle. Iron Vale was not what Lyra expected. She had imagined something austere, a fortress on a cliff, stone walls and iron gates, and the smell of cold metal. What she saw when the column crested the final ridge was a valley that opened like a cupped hand, timber houses with moss-covered roofs, gardens even this late in autumn, with the last of the root vegetables still in the ground, a river running through the center, wide and slow, spanned by a stone bridge worn smooth by generations of feet. Smoke rising from chimneys, the sound floating up through the clear air of a blacksmith's hammer, and underneath it, someone singing. The main house was large, but not palatial. Stone foundation timber frame, a roof of split cedar shakes that had weathered to silver. It looked like a building that had been built to last, not to impress. There were claw marks on the door frame, old ones layered some at waist height, some at shoulder height, as if generations of wolves had scratched their presence into the wood, the way humans carved initials. The pack gathered as the column rode in. Lyra saw dozens of faces, curious, guarded, assessing. She tightened her hands on the reins. Sage pressed closer to Maren. Rowan lifted his chin and stared back at every face with those grey eyes. Kyle dismounted and lifted Lyra down from the horse. He did not put her down immediately. He held her for a moment, his hands on her waist, and the pack watched, and he looked at her with an expression that was both question and answer. And then he set her on her feet and turned to face his people. "This is Lyra," he said. His voice carried the way a river carries, effortless and undeniable. "She is my mate and the mother of my children. She has been surviving alone for 6 years because she was wronged by a pack that was not worthy of her. That ends now." He did not ask for the pack's approval. He did not make a speech about acceptance or unity. He stated facts and let the facts settle into the silence that followed. A woman stepped forward from the crowd. She was old 60 at least, with white hair pulled back from a face that was all angles and weather-beaten skin. She walked directly to Lyra, looked at her for a 3 count, and then looked at the twins. "They have your jaw," she said to Lyra, and his eyes. "Good combination." She extended a hand that was gnarled with arthritis, but steady as stone. "I'm Thessa. I run the kitchens. You look like you haven't eaten properly in years. Come." Lyra took her hand. The adjustment was not seamless. Lyra had spent too long alone to slip easily into the rhythms of pack life. She flinched at sudden noises. She hoarded food, tucking bread into her pockets at meals, until Thessa noticed, and without comment, started leaving a wrapped bundle outside Lyra's door each night. Bread, cheese, dried fruit, so she would know there was always extra. Lyra unwrapped these bundles with hands that shook and ate, standing up in the dark of her room, and each time the shaking lasted a little shorter. The twins adapted faster. Children do. Rowan attached himself to the Iron Vale training yard, sitting on the fence, watching the older wolves spar with an intensity that was almost predatory. The trainers noticed him. They started explaining techniques as they demonstrated directing their commentary at the small boy on the fence, who watched with those unnerving grey eyes and never asked questions, but somehow, when they looked away, was mimicking the movements with an accuracy that bordered on impossible for a 5-year-old. Sage found the pack's herbalist, an ancient half-deaf man named Torin, who kept a garden behind the main house and talked to his plants in a continuous low monologue. Sage sat in his garden for 3 hours the first day, silent watching. On the second day, she started weeding. By the 4th day, Torin was teaching her which roots reduced fever and which ones were poison, and Sage was absorbing the knowledge with the focused stillness of a river stone being shaped by the current. Kyle courted Lyra with a patience that was clearly against his nature. She saw him fight it, saw the way his hands would twitch toward her, and then stop. Saw the way his jaw would clench when she moved away after being too close for too long. His wolf wanted to claim to mark, to make the bond irrevocable. His man waited. The tension between the two lived in his body, like a current running through a wire, visible in the set of his shoulders, the careful distance he maintained, the way he always positioned himself between her and any door, not to block her exit, but so that his body would be between her and whatever came through. 2 weeks after they arrived, the first crisis came. It announced itself at dawn with a rider on a lathered horse, a boy barely out of adolescence, who stumbled into the main house, gasping that a war party from the Stone Ridge Pack had crossed the southern border and was burning settlements. Kyle transformed from the man who sat quietly watching his daughter arrange river stones into something else entirely. Lyra watched the change happen in real time, a hardening, a sharpening, as if the soft parts of him retracted, and what was left was blade and purpose. He issued commands in a voice that was no longer warm or careful or patient. Soldiers moved, horses were saddled, weapons appeared. He came to her before he left. He stood in the doorway of her room, already armored, and looked at her with the expression of a man trying to memorize a face. "I will come back," he said. "I know, if something happens. If I don't. Maren has orders. You and the twins are to be taken north to the coastal territory. My ally there will... You'll come back." He crossed the room in 2 strides, and his hands were on her face, his thumbs against her cheekbones, his fingers in her hair and his forehead pressed against hers, and she felt the bond between them pulse like a second heartbeat. And for a moment, neither of them breathed. 2 days, he said. 3 at most. He left. The sound of the war party departing filled the valley hoofbeats, and the creak of leather, and the low, purposeful howls of wolves shifting to run alongside the riders. Then silence. The valley held its breath. On the second night, Lyra woke to Sage screaming. Sage didn't scream. Sage barely spoke. The sound that came from the child's throat was not a nightmare sound, not the thin, reedy cry of a bad dream. It was a sound of power, a sound that should not have been possible from a 5-year-old's body, because it contained harmonics, layers, a wolf's howl braided through a child's scream, and it shattered the clay water jug on the bedside table and cracked the window glass. Lyra grabbed her daughter. Sage was rigid, her eyes open, but unfocused, her small body vibrating with a frequency Lyra could feel in her own bones. Her eyes were glowing. Not metaphorically. Not the reflective shine of wolf eyes catching light, glowing a cold silver-white light pouring from her irises like moonlight through water. Rowan was awake, pressed against the wall, his own eyes wide, with something that was not fear. It was recognition. "She's seeing," he whispered. "Mum, she's seeing. Seeing what? The wolf place. The in-between. She told me about it. She goes there sometimes when she sleeps. But she's never gone this deep before. Lyra held her daughter and felt the vibration slowly ease, felt the glow in those eyes dim by degrees, felt the small body go from rigid to trembling to limp. Sage blinked. Her eyes were their normal grey. She looked up at Lyra. "He's hurt," Sage said. "Who's hurt, Father?" "The blood wolf hurt him. The big grey one with the broken eye. It bit his shoulder, and the poison is in the bite. He can't shift back." Cold flooded Lyra's body, not the cold of the mountain. A deeper cold, the cold of knowing. "Where?" Lyra said. "The ravine with the red rocks. South. Where the river bends like a sleeping snake." Lyra moved without thinking. She went to Maren, who was sleeping in the guard quarters, and shook her awake and told her what Sage had seen. Maren looked at her with the skepticism of a soldier and the caution of a woman who had learned to trust unusual intelligence. "Seers haven't existed in Iron Vale for 3 generations, Maren said. "My daughter just cracked a window with her voice and told me which ravine your king is bleeding in. Take me there or point me in the direction and I'll go myself." Maren pointed. She also insisted on coming along with 4 soldiers and a field medic who looked nervous about the whole thing. They rode south through the dark. Lyra had not ridden a horse alone before. Her thighs burned against the saddle and her hands ached on the reins. And she didn't care, because Sage's voice was in her head, calm and certain. The blood wolf hurt him. And Lyra was discovering in real time that the protective instinct she had always aimed exclusively at her children was capable of expanding to include one more person. They found the ravine at dawn. Sage's description was exact. Red sandstone walls, the river bending in a sinuous curve, and there at the base of the cliff, a wolf the color of thunderclouds, massive larger than any wolf Lyra had ever seen, lying on its side in a pool of blood that looked black in the early light. Soldiers surrounded the wolf. They were trying to get close. The wolf was snarling, snapping, lashing out with claws that scored the rock. It could not shift back. Lyra could see the wound on its shoulder, a ragged tear where the flesh was swollen, and discolored veins of dark purple radiating from the bite like cracks in glass. Poison, the kind that locked a wolf in its shifted form and slowly shut down the organs. "That's Stonebane," the field medic said, her face white. "I've only read about it. There's no antidote. It metabolizes in the blood and..." Lyra dismounted. She walked toward the wolf. "Lyra, don't," Maren said. She walked past the soldiers. They stepped aside. Later she would learn that they stepped aside, not because they recognized her authority, but because the look on her face was the look of a force of nature, and soldiers, even brave ones, knew when to get out of the way. The wolf snarled at her. Its lips peeled back from teeth the length of her fingers. Its eyes were wild, lost the alpha consciousness, buried under the wolf's pain and the poison's delirium. Lyra knelt, the blood soaked into the knees of her dress. She put her hands on the wolf's face, one on each side of its massive jaw, and she held on. The wolf thrashed. Its teeth snapped inches from her wrists. She felt the hot gust of its breath on her skin, smelling of copper and bile. "Kyle," she said, "come back." She said it the way she said everything, quietly, without drama. The way she told the twins to close the shutters. The way she told Rowan to stop growling. An instruction delivered with the calm certainty of a woman who had spent 6 years being the only authority in her world. The wolf went still, not slowly, all at once, like a switch being thrown. The massive body relaxed under her hands. The snarling stopped. The wild eyes focused, found her face, and held. Something happened then that Lyra did not understand and would spend the rest of her life trying to. Her wolf, the weak, suppressed, nearly silent wolf that the Ashenmore pack had dismissed as defective, woke up. Not the way it had woken in the tent when she first saw Kale. That had been a howl of recognition. This was different. This was a rising of presence, filling her body from the soles of her feet to the crown of her head. And it was not small. It was not weak. It was not the timid Omega wolf she had always been told she had. It was enormous. The field medic would later describe what she saw as a pulse of light that originated from the woman's hands and spread through the wolf's body along the visible vein structures of the poison. She would say that the discoloration retreated, that the swelling around the bite wound decreased, that the wolf's breathing stabilized. She would say these things clinically carefully because she was a trained healer, and the clinical language was the only way she could process what she had witnessed. What she would not say, because she had no clinical language for it, was that the Omega woman's eyes had turned the same silver white as her daughter's, and that a sound had come from her that was not a howl and not a song, but something between the two. Something old. Something that made every wolf in the ravine shifted and unshifted lower their heads. Kyle shifted back. The wolf dissolved into the man, and the man was gasping, shaking naked on the bloody rock, the wound on his shoulder, still open, but clean, now the poison gone. Lyra caught him. She held his head in her lap, and his blood soaked through her dress, and she pressed her hand over the wound and felt the warmth of the healing still pulsing in her palms. How? He managed. I don't know. Your wolf? I don't know. That was not an Omega wolf. She looked at her hands. They were covered in his blood. They were still glowing faintly, the silver-white light fading like embers. No, she said. I don't think it was. The ride back took longer. Kyle could sit a horse, but barely listing to one side, his wounded shoulder wrapped in field dressings that soaked through twice. Lyra rode beside him and did not speak because she was processing something that rearranged everything she understood about herself, and processing for Lyra was a silent activity. The pack healer met them at the gates. She was a woman named Dalla who had gentle hands and eyes like a hawk's, sharp and miss nothing. She examined Kyle's wound and looked at the edges and looked at Lyra. This was cleaned by a purifier, Dalla said. A what? A purifier. An alpha line wolf with healing abilities. They haven't been born in the territories for over 100 years. The last one was in the Snowcrest bloodline. She paused. What was your mother's name? Ilsa. She was human. She had no wolf. And your father? A rogue. I never knew him. Do you know what pack he was from? No. Dalla looked at her for a long time. I'd like to do a lineage trace, a blood ritual. It requires a drop of your blood and a piece of old territory stone. It won't hurt, but it might answer some questions you didn't know you had. Do it, Lyra said. The ritual took 3 days to read. Dalla performed it in a stone circle behind the main house, an ancient place that smelled like rain-soaked lichen and centuries of wolf magic. Lyra gave a drop of blood. The stone drank it. Dalla said, "Now we wait." While they waited, word spread. Not through any official announcement. Through the way, all important information travels in a pack, whispers over meals, significant looks exchanged during training. The word purifier, spoken in low voices by people old enough to know what it meant. Kyle recovered with the speed of an alpha, which was considerable. Within 2 days, he was walking. Within 3, he was sparring lightly. Within 5, he was fully operational and furious about the Stone Ridge incursion, which he dealt with through a combination of military force and political maneuvering that Lyra observed from a distance and found both impressive and slightly frightening. On the 6th day, Dalla came to Lyra. "Your father was from Snowcrest," she said. "The lineage trace is clear. He was a direct descendant of their Alpha line, the Purifier bloodline. He was a rogue. He was exiled. There's a difference. The Snowcrest pack fell apart 30 years ago after an internal war. The survivors scattered. Some went rogue. Some hid their lineage. Your father must have been one of them." Lyra sat with this information, the way she sat with all new information, in silence, turning it over, feeling its weight. "So I'm not Omega," she said. "Your wolf was suppressed, probably from birth, possibly by the trauma of growing up in a pack that treated you as lowest rank. The mate bond and the crisis with Kale triggered the awakening. Your children," Dalla hesitated, "your children carry the Purifier bloodline and the Iron Veil Alpha bloodline. Together. Lyra, that combination has never existed before, ever, in any recorded lineage. What does that mean for them? I don't know. But Sage is already showing seer abilities, and Rowan's wolf awareness is years ahead of any child I've examined. These are not ordinary children. I've always known that." Dalla smiled. "Of course you have. You're their mother." That evening, Kyle came to her room. He stood in the doorway the way he always stood in doorways, taking up most of the frame. And he looked at her with the expression she was learning to read, the one that meant he wanted to say something important, and was choosing his words with the care of a man who knew words could be weapons. "Dalla told me," he said. "Yes. Snowcrest Alpha bloodline. Purifier. The rarest wolf in 7 generations. Yes. And Ashenmore had you scrubbing floors." Something in his voice. Not anger. Something older. Sadness, maybe. Or the kind of exhausted wonder that comes from discovering that the world is both crueler and more beautiful than you thought. "I didn't know," Lyra said. "I spent 25 years thinking I was the weakest wolf alive. I built a life around that belief. I raised children around it. And now you're telling me it was all wrong, and I don't know what to do with that, Kyle. I don't know who I am if I'm not the woman who survived by being small and quiet." He crossed the room. He sat on the edge of her bed, uninvited, and she did not tell him to leave. "You are the woman who survived by being strong," he said. "The size of your wolf doesn't change that. You carried water up a mountain every day for 6 years. You raised 2 extraordinary children alone. You healed a poisoned alpha wolf with your bare hands. That wasn't your bloodline. That was you." She looked at him, at the scar on his jaw, at the new wound on his shoulder, still healing, still raw, at his hands resting on his knees, open palms up like he was waiting for something to be placed in them. "I want to stay," she said. "Not because of the bond, not because of bloodlines, because my children smile here, because Thessa leaves bread at my door, because Maren taught Rowan how to hold a knife, and Torin is teaching Sage which mushrooms will kill you, because this place smells like cedar and river water, and I don't have to be afraid of it. Then stay. But I need you to understand something. If I take you as my mate, if I accept the bond, I am not the girl in the hallway anymore. I am the woman who climbed the mountain. And I need you to want the woman, not the memory. Lyra." His voice cracked again. That crack, the pressure behind it, the fault line in the bedrock. "I don't remember the girl in the hallway. I remember her scent, the shape of her, the way my wolf went quiet. But the woman sitting in front of me is the one I want. This one, the one with scars on her shins and calluses she leaned forward and kissed him. It was not the kiss she had imagined on the mountain during the rare, unguarded moments when she allowed herself to imagine anything at all. It was not dramatic or consuming or overwhelming. It was soft, careful. The press of her mouth against his, and the way his breath actually caught this man who had fought wars, and the way his hand came up to cup the back of her head with a gentleness so absolute, it was almost fragile. Then the softness burned away, and the bond opened like a door, and they were both falling into it, his arms pulling her in her hands, fisting in his shirt, the kiss deepening into something that tasted like pine and iron, and the warm bread smell she could never name, and his wolf surged up and her wolf rose to meet it, and the sound they made together was not a sound that existed in human language. It was older than language. It was the sound of two frequencies finding the same pitch after years of dissonance. He pulled back. His breathing was ragged, his eyes were molten, the grey shot through with gold. "The claiming ceremony?" he said. "Say when." "Tomorrow. Tomorrow. I waited 6 years. I'm done waiting." The claiming ceremony in Iron Vale was not what the romance stories described. There was no moonlit clearing, no ancient words spoken in the wolf tongue, no procession of white-clad attendants. Instead, there was this. The entire pack gathered in the main hall. At midday, the tables pushed to the walls, the fire built high, so the light filled the room with a warmth that smelled like cedar and applewood. The twins stood at the front, Rowan in a new shirt that he had already gotten dirt on Sage, holding one of her river stones in each hand. Maren stood behind them, her scarred face arranged in an expression of such fierce protectiveness that it bordered on threatening. Kyle wore no armor, just a simple dark shirt and his scars. He stood at the center of the hall, and he looked for the first time since Lyra had known him, not like a king, like a man. Lyra walked to him. The pack watched. She wore the green dress, the first real piece of clothing she had been given here, because it mattered to her that the dress she wore was the one she had chosen when she was still deciding whether to stay. Kyle took her hand. He turned it over and pressed his lips to the scar on her left forearm, the one the elder's blade had left, the one that ached when it rained. He kissed it slowly, deliberately, and the pack understood the gesture without explanation. This scar. This was what had been done. And this was what he thought of what had been done. "Mine," he said. Not to the pack. To her. "Mine," she said back. He lowered his mouth to the curve of her neck, to the place where the shoulder met the throat. She felt his teeth, and then the sharp, bright pain of the bite, and then the bond, the real bond, the full bond, flooded through her like a river breaking through a dam. And she felt every wall she had ever built come down at once, not destroyed, but dissolved, because they were no longer necessary. She bit him back, on the same spot. She felt his body jerk under her teeth and heard the sound he made, low and broken and victorious, and the pack erupted. Not in cheers, in howls. Every wolf in the room shifted, or half-shifted, and the sound that filled the hall was a sound that Lyra felt in the marrow of her bones, the sound of a pack accepting a new member, the vibration of dozens of bonds clicking into place like locks finding their keys. Rowan howled too. His voice, that impossibly deep sound for a child, joined the pack's chorus, and for a single moment Sage opened her mouth, and the sound that came from her was not a howl, but a harmonic, a clear ringing note that sat on top of the howling, like light on water. Thessa was crying. She stood at the back of the hall with tears running down her weathered face, and her gnarled hands clasped against her chest. And she was not crying prettily or dramatically, but the way way old women cry with their whole faces without caring who saw. Maren was not crying. Maren was grinning. The scar on her face pulled the grin into something lopsided and fierce, and she caught Lyra's eye across the hall and gave her a nod that contained, in its brevity, everything. 3 weeks later, a rider arrived from the south, Yelena. She rode into Iron Vale on the same grey horse, thinner, now dustier with the look of a woman who had not rested in weeks. She carried a leather folder. Lyra met her at the gate. Not Kyle. Lyra. Yelena dismounted. She held out the folder. 9 names, she said. 1 I couldn't find. The other 9 I found them. 4 in human towns. 3 in other pack territories. 2 living together in a cave system near the coast. 1 was pregnant when I found her. I arranged shelter with a pack, I trust. She paused. The one I couldn't find, a girl named Meris. I'm still looking. Lyra took the folder. She opened it. 9 names, locations, conditions, needs, written in Yelena's careful hand. Each entry detailed each one, showing evidence of actual effort of miles traveled and questions asked and doors knocked on. You did this, Lyra said. It was the least I could do. Yes, it was. The words were not kind. They were not cruel. They were precise, which was more useful than either. I need rest, Yelena said. And then I'm going back out, for Meris. Lyra looked at this woman who had stood in a doorway in a plum dress and said, Make sure the cut is deep enough. She looked at the dust on her clothes and the shadows under her eyes, and the set of her jaw, which was the set of a person who had found a purpose and was holding on to it with both hands, because the alternative was drowning. There's food in the main hall, Lyra said, and a room at the east end. Thessa will show you. Yelena nodded. She walked past Lyra toward the main house. She stopped. Without turning around, she said, The scream you made when Corwin held you down and Harkin cut. I hear it every night. I will hear it every night for the rest of my life. That's not a bid for pity. It's a fact. I want you to know it. She went inside. Lyra stood at the gate, holding the leather folder, with 9 lives inside it. The wind came down from the mountains, cold and clean, carrying the smell of pine and distant snow. From somewhere behind the main house, she could hear Sage's voice, quiet and clear, naming plants for Torrin. From the training yard, the ring of practice swords and Rowan's laughter, an unguarded, full-throated sound she had never heard before they came here. The mate bond hummed in her chest, warm and constant, and she felt Kale somewhere in the main house, felt his awareness of her like a hand resting lightly on her shoulder. She closed the folder. She looked at the mountains that had kept her alive for 6 years. Their peaks still white, their slopes still dark with pine. They were beautiful. They had also been a prison. She did not miss them. She did not need to. Inside, the fire was going. Thessa had left bread on the table, a round loaf with a crackling crust, and beside it a small cloth bundle that Lyra already knew contained cheese and dried fruit, because some kindnesses become rituals, and rituals become the architecture of a home. She sat. She tore the bread. The crust cracked under her fingers, and the inside was still warm, and the steam that rose from it carried the smell of yeast and wheat, and the particular alchemy of stone ovens that had been used for generations. Sage came in from the garden with dirt on her knees, and a sprig of rosemary behind her ear. Rowan came from the training yard with a bruise on his chin and a grin that split his face. They sat on either side of her and reached for the bread without asking, because they lived here now, and the bread was always there, and they did not need to ask. Kyle appeared in the doorway. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, watching his family eat bread at a table, and the expression on his face was one Lyra had not seen before. It was not soft or hard or commanding or careful. It was the expression of a man who has spent his entire life holding his breath and has finally exhaled. Sage held up the sprig of rosemary. Torrin says it keeps bad dreams away. Does it work? Kyle asked. Sage considered this with the gravity of a 5-year-old philosopher. I don't need it anymore. I don't have bad dreams here. She put the rosemary on the table between the bread and the cheese. It sat there small and ordinary and green, smelling like nothing in particular, unless you pressed it between your fingers, which no one did. They ate. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall soft and silent, covering the mountains in white.